Good morning. Welcome inside our studios. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. You can also listen to us on the PGA Tour Radio Network. I am Gary Williams, and this show is always, every day, proudly brought to you by Century Insurance, right by you. They partner with the right people, investing in the game in the best ways with the USGA, with the First Team. We are very proud to be aligned with them. And of course, our 3 North Carolina-based companies, Golf Pride. Every player at every level trusts Golf Pride more than any grip in the world. Peter Millar, refining, functioning, style, and luxury for more than 20 years. Everything I wear, head to toe, for the last 15 years is Peter Millar. And I've been going to Pinehurst since I was a teenager. And every time I go, it's better. And now they've got cottages available to you at Pinehurst number 8. And they've got the clubhouse and the new restaurant at Pinehurst number 10 available this summer. All right, we got plenty to get to. We already got a full house, I promise you. Johnson Wagner was hitting shots on 17 green yesterday with Rory McIlroy at lunchtime. He's already here. He's dying to get in this studio. So is Brendon de Jonge. They will be with me for the balance of the last half of this program. But before them, Ronde Barber, an all-decade defensive back, a Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winner for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's the general chairman of the Valspar Championship. He's going to be with me in about 15 minutes. But we led into the 3-hole aggregate playoff of the 51st players yesterday. It wound up becoming anticlimactic because Rory McIlroy made what I thought was one of the signature statements that he's made on the tee. And I'm going to go through a little catalog here in a moment. So he got one up through the first hole. Then unfortunately, J.J. Spaun rinsed his tee shot on 17, and Rory McIlroy walked to the 18th tee, that third hole with a 3-shot lead. It was over. But I'm not saying it was over after one swing, but it was a statement. His tee shot on 16 goes into a small catalog that I have of some of the most important tee shots that Rory McIlroy has struck in his career. He absolutely flushed it. And I go back to the 2014 PGA Championship, standing on also the 16th tee with Phil Mickelson and Ricky Fowler ahead of him with fading light at Valhalla. And he absolutely nutted his tee shot, and he did a little thing with his chin like, yeah, get you some of that. That's in a phase of his career when he was wearing a flat-brimmed cap, and he was ruthless on the golf course. He's not so much like that anymore. I'll get to that in just a moment as well. But I think of other tee shots yet, including at the Players. The final hole of the 2019 Players at a golf course many people thought he could never win on. With a little wind into off the right, he absolutely hit that tight little draw and split the fairway and goes on, and he wins for the first time at the stadium course. I think about 16 at Quail Hollow last year. He had a 2-shot deficit that he was looking at on the 8th tee against Xander Schauffele. He flipped the script. He holed out for eagle on 15. Then he stood on 16. And every year it seems like Johnny Harris and the boys at Quail want to put that tee further back in the parking lot where their tournament office is. And he said, you know what? You can put it as far back as you want. I'm still going to fly that bunker down the right-hand side. And he did it again. It was a statement. It was a statement that not today, not on my watch. So now he sits here as the first European player to win 2 Players. He joins Tiger and Jack and Scheffler as multi-time major winners and multi-time Players winners. And now he also has 28 Tour wins, which now matches your favorites, Leo Deagle and Paul Runyon. And see, these names that I'm getting ready to rip off here, these are guys who played 70, 80, 90 years ago. Guys like Light Horse Harry Cooper and Horton Smith. You see where I'm going here? I got to get to number 34, like 34 wins all time, for me to get to somebody who played in the 2000s, and that was Vijay Singh at 34. Next on his list is Gene Littler and Lee Trevino at 29, and then Jimmy Demaret at 31. There are only 3 guys who have played in this century ahead of him on the PGA Tour wins list. Vijay with 34, Phil with 45, and Tiger with that modest number of 82. So all of that stuff is extraordinary. But here is where we get to where we kind of converge with other things, other dynamics, that he finds himself swimming in a very odd, interesting, challenging current. He's not alone in that current, and I'm talking about guys who have been dinged, historical players who have felt being gutted at a major championship. Sam Snead, 1939, 1947, 1949 at the U.S. Open. How about the 1961 Masters for Arnold Palmer? He'd already won in 58 and 60. He was looking to go back-to-back. All he needed to do was make a par on the last. He made a double and lost by a shot to Gary Player, who won it for the first time. How about Hogan in 55 at the U.S. Open? Yeah, you thought, well, 287 always wins the U.S. Open. Gene Sarazen actually did an interview with him on the 18th green, almost declaring him the winner. And a guy named Jack Fleck played the last 5 holes in 2 under, forced a playoff, and then beat him the next day at the Olympic Club. So Rory has this scar tissue that Palmer and Hogan and Snead and others have, but very few have it in consecutive years. The 22 Open Championship, the 23 U.S. Open, and of course the biggest, deepest cut, the 2024 U.S. Open. So he's got to deal with that psychologically. And here's the last part where he's all alone as we head toward Augusta National and that nice sublime drive down Magnolia Lane. He's trying to get to 5. He's been trying to get to 5 now for more than a decade. And let's give you a little historical context of guys who went from 4 to 5 major wins. Tiger Woods did it in a month. He won the 2000 U.S. Open in June. He won the Open Championship to win the career Grand Slam for the first time. So he flipped that number in 1 month. Jack Nicklaus, in 1 year, the 65 Masters and the 66 Masters took him from 4 to 5. And I can go through all of them. Hagen and Hogan and Palmer and Snead and Nelson and Seve and Faudo and Phil, all of them. On average, the guys who went from 4 to 5 majors did it in 2.5 years. He's over a decade. So he's in this really unusual psychological space, and add to it the final little wrinkle, which ain't little in my mind. He's trying to not only go from 4 to 5, his first opportunity is his ultimate Rubicon, which is the career Grand Slam, and doing it at Augusta National. And nobody summarized what Sarazen did in 1935 at Augusta National better than Brandel Chambly did 5-6 years ago when he had a podcast at Golf Channel with Jaime Diaz. And he said, what Sarazen won in 1935 was akin to winning the Hero World Challenge. Nobody knew what the Masters was. Heck, it wasn't even called the Masters. It was the Augusta National Invitation. So retroactively, he got the career Grand Slam. It doesn't discredit it in any way. In large measure, we weren't really sure where Hogan sat in terms of the career Grand Slam when it was modernized after Bob Drum and alongside Arnold Palmer in 1960 kind of put that modern slam, so to speak, into play. So he's trying to win the Masters and win the career Grand Slam at a place where nobody's done it, obviously, in the modern era, and really, in my estimation, kind of all time, but yes, Sarazen has it. So all of that stuff is in play as a guy who goes there with more momentum than he's ever had in his career, because never in his career has Rory McIlroy won twice before the month of April, let alone the Masters tournament. And not only has he won twice, he's won twice at 2 golf courses that you wouldn't necessarily associate him, even though he's won the Players, places where you'd go, well, he'll be really good there. You want to know why it doesn't seem natural or normal that he would win at Pebble Beach and also at the Players? They're the most driver-deficient venues on the PGA Tour, meaning guys don't hit driver there. They hit it less those 2 places than anywhere else. And what's his greatest weapon? The driver. So he's displaying a level of refinement and evolution in terms of his game that we've not seen before. But it doesn't change anything in the minds and the eyes of a lot of people who kind of dip their toe in the water of golf 4 times a year. And that is whether it's the mainstream sports media or mainstream sports fans who like golf but are not devoted like me and you dimpleheads who can't get enough of it, who go, yeah, nice win. Heck, I listen to Christopher Mad Dog Russo, my old boss on his show, going, I don't care about the TPC. First of all, nobody calls it that, Chris. He doesn't care about the players. See, we do, but a lot of people don't. So his referendum starts in April. And then he comes here to Quail Hollow, his happy haunt for the PGA, and on to Oakmont for the U.S. Open, and finally home to Portrush. 28's, it's monstrous. It's a massive number. He is the most successful, greatest player of this century so far. And I know Brooks has got 5 majors. I don't think it's that simple. In total, Brooks Koepka has won 9 times on the PGA Tour with those 5 majors. Incredible. It's one of the oddest resumes we've ever seen historically. Rory's got 4 and 28 and all this other stuff. It was a huge win. It's bold type. And now he goes to Augusta National. And all he does is build momentum, but also build expectation and external pressure. It was always going to be a great storyline, most certainly. He's made it better, richer, fuller, and more provocative. Congratulations, Rory. And thanks for making what we do more interesting. We take a break here. When we continue. He was an all-decade defensive back, the cover 2-0 himself, Ronde Barber. He's the general chairman of the Valspar Championship. Tampa is home for him. He loves golf. I know he does. We get his thoughts on the game, this event, and also he's approaching a number as well. I may touch on that. Plus, Johnson and Brendon, they've been here since 6:30, dying lousy to talk golf. We will do that with them as well. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. And if you're leaving the house and getting in the car, Channel 92 on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM. We're back with you right after this. Welcome back into 5 Clubs on this Tuesday. Nice to have you with us. And this segment is brought to you by Golf Pride. Every player, every level, their new grip is the Align Max. I've got them on my clubs. It's the best grip I've ever had on my clubs. They are the standard for every player, from the best players in the world to people who play 2-3 times a year at the recreational level. All right, he plays more than 2 or 3 times a year. He plays 2 or 3 times a week in all likelihood. This is somebody who loves golf. I've known him for a long, long time, an all-decade defensive back. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl champion. He is Ronde Barber. He's also the general chairman of the Valspar Championship. He's looking good for a man who's getting ready to roll the odometer to a particular number. How are you, my friend?
You had to go there, didn't you, Gary? Appreciate you letting everybody know I'm 50.
You're not 50. You're going to be 50.
Right. I'm going to be 50. Now, I feel good, actually, at 50. Not too many aches and pains, even though I got some old injuries that pop up now and then. But most importantly, none of them prevent me from playing golf. So, yes, I am a 2 or 3 time a week golfer.
You know, it's funny, Ronde, years ago, I don't know how often you did this. I used to go to Kiowa during the summertime with my family, and I saw you there a couple times. It was right before you guys were headed to training camp, walking the beach, playing golf. It was kind of like your last breath before you had to dig in. Do you remember the first time you picked up a golf club?
Oh, yeah, God. I played 1 or 2 times when I was at Virginia. Played at the old Birdwood golf course that's right off of campus. But I wouldn't say I was a golfer by any means. I was following the Tiger Woods trend is what I was doing. But when I got drafted by Tampa, there was a guy named Anthony Parker. I tell this story all the time. He was an older defensive back. He loved golf. He lived in Arizona. And every Friday after our half day, because Fridays were half day for us, he'd drag me to the golf course, and we would chip and putt, and he'd teach me some fundamentals of the game, and then that just became a routine. And I think that off season is when I decided that I needed to recreate playing golf. And from then on, it's been a pretty fun addiction, man.
No, I know it is. You know, I've always been interested to talk to people who've gotten to the highest level at all these respective sports. And whether it's the curiosity, the devotion, the passion about the game of golf, what is the most redeemable thing about playing golf that sustains you in a way that gives you nourishment after doing something that was very, very different athletically?
Right. Certainly it's competitive, right? I play in a ton of my club events, you know. Got my name on the board a couple times.
Oh, nice.
But I would say beyond the competition, it's the camaraderie. Getting a chance to be with whomever you're with, whether it's you and a buddy, or you and a group of 5, or you and a group of 10 that you're playing little games with. Being able to be around and hang with the guys after or during golf, I think really motivates me to go out and do it. I use it obviously for Valspar and those needs that comes with this. But the reality is, I go out with my buddies Paul and Brian and Ben, and we just go play golf and we talk life and enjoy each other's respective journeys as we've gotten older. And there's no better place to do it than golf. I don't fish, not really. I guess I go out and fish, but I'm not a fisherman. I don't bowl. I don't play pickleball. What I do is play golf.
All those things are great to hear. You mentioned Valspar, and professional athletes don't have choices as to where they go at the beginning. You get into a position with free agency, maybe then you make a different choice. You go to Tampa, and then you become not only one of the best players and one of the great defenses the NFL has ever seen. You win a Super Bowl. You immerse yourself in the community, so you understand the importance of things beyond Raymond James Stadium and where you played. The Valspar Championship, as the general chairman, explain to people the importance this event has to the greater Tampa Bay area.
Right. So me and my co-chair, John Astrow, we talk about this all the time. We actually share a condo during this week. And the reality is that we want to put on a great event, right? We have a lot of great golfers in this year's event. It's probably our strongest field ever. But the reality is that John and I are chairman of a charity. I have a 501c3 host organization that puts on the Valspar Championship. And so our overriding goal, me, him, our board, our 200 plus copperheads that are involved with this tournament, all we want to do is end up generating funds for our local charities. So I think when I first joined this board, probably 9 years ago, I probably didn't understand the significance of it. But over the past, 10 years, this tournament has just grown and grown and grown. And I happen to be fortunate enough to be the steward of this organization when it crossed the $50 million mark. And that was something to be excessively proud about. The Copperhead Charities has been around since 1977, as you know, hosting professional golf. They did the mixed field event when it was the JCPenney Classic. And then from 2000 on, it's been a PGA Tour event. And just the number of charities that we've been able to impact. I mean, I think we touched around 70 or so just last year, and we'll do probably the same this year, makes it worth it for us. But we do have a good time. Obviously, we have a great sponsor that emphasizes this being the most colorful PGA Tour, tour event in the world, or whatever their saying is. But the reality is they've partnered with a group that really has the community at heart.
Yeah, Ronde, you mentioned the timeline, the mixed team event, and then you get on to the PGA Tour schedule. Then you did something which I thought was vitally important, not only the event, but also the tour as a whole. It fortified the Florida swing by unifying all these events in succession. Mm-hmm. And I would argue, honestly, that this could be determined as the best golf course of the four. They're all challenging. They're all interesting. Having been there a lot, going there as a kid, there recently for a Steph Curry underrated event, that golf course stands up with any golf course on the PGA Tour. How often do you get a chance to play it?
I play it quite a bit. I've been a member there for a long time. My kids took tennis lessons on the Innisbrook property. They had the big pool, which I think is somewhat of an attraction for the PGA Tour player, especially because it sometimes, including this week, revolves around spring break. So there's a lot of families here on the property. But as far as the golf course goes, there's nothing like it around here. Obviously, I've been here a long time playing golf, but the ups and downs, the lefts and rights, the way that Ryan Stewart and his staff lay down the rye and let this thing turn into something that it's not the rest of the year is pretty astounding. And I think the pros appreciate that. Obviously, you mentioned, I know for a fact they like our date on the calendar. That's why our field is so strong. It continues to get stronger. But the reality is it's a test of golf. As you're preparing for the big events that are coming up in the next month and a half or so, this is probably one of the ones you want to see. Because if you can get around this and conquer this, it's going to reveal a great champion. And we've had some great champions over the year. Had some kind of, also rans too, like Peter Malnati, who says he's a grinder. He's not, wouldn't wouldn't say he's a journeyman. I thought he had a great interview the other week talking about how he had to grind out this victory in his first one in 15 years, and he did it on a great golf course. So I think that's probably one of the best things that we have to hang our hat on at the Copperhead.
Yeah, you know, Ronde, I thought his interview and immediately after winning with Keurig K. Dixon was one of the better, more revealing examinations on saying, look, you know, these stars, you know, that yes, it's professional golf, but me and all these other guys who are just trying to cobble it together, be fully exempt and to cross the line and win again. I thought it was one of the best moments of 2024. Before I let you go, a couple things. You know, I remember as somebody who grew up a Giant fan, and your brother was obviously a great player with them, halftime adjustments, Monty Kiffin, Tony Dungy, John Gruden, you had 12 minutes at halftime. And I think sometimes we overrate that. Professional golfers have to go in at the end of the quarter, the half, the third quarter, and sleep on it. Do you think you would have adapted well to a competition that was contested over 4 days like these guys have to deal with?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that's probably why they earn the money that they earn, especially the winners. I mean, it's an ultimate test of fortitude, right? I mean, you wake up. I know how I wake up when I was practicing during the week for football. I'd feel different on Tuesday than I did on Monday. And Wednesday, you feel a little bit better. By Thursday, you kind of feel like yourself. Like, I couldn't imagine doing Sunday like I had to play and wake up knowing that if I don't perform, I'm not getting a paycheck. It's a unique, I think, aspect of the sport because it's really you. I mean, you think about long tennis tournaments and, you know, other individual type sports, they're not cumulative like golf is. And I think that really is the challenge of golf. And I think that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it, you know, such a special game. And I think it's why it reveals such unbelievable winners over the course of time.
All right, let's get the Pro Football Hall of Famer Ronde Barber out of here with 5 to go. 5 quick questions for him. The first one is the most nervous you've ever been playing golf. When was it?
I think the first time I played at the American Century in Lake Tahoe, standing on that first tee, it's a big, huge celebrity event. There's a lot of great golfers there. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So that first tee shot was probably the nervous I've ever been on a golf course.
Now, do you remember who you were? Did they pair you with other defensive backs, guys that you had some kind of connection to that first time?
Yeah, the last time I was there, I played with all DBs. It was me, Charles Woodson, and God, I can't remember who the other one was. But the first time, no, I think it was just random. Actually, I think I remember playing with a basketball player, and God, I can't remember who it was. I remember he was tall. And I couldn't believe he could hit a golf ball the way that he did.
All right, the wide receiver who is the biggest nuisance, meaning combination speed, physicality in your career. Was there one guy that you had to deal with that stands out?
A couple. First was Randy Moss. He was a pain in the butt. He's tall, fast, everything. But the nuisance one was Steve Smith when he was at Carolina. I mean, the guy was, you know, he's kind of my size. We played the same way. We're gritty. You know, we wanted to outwork you. We dared you to challenge, you know, each other. And then you're going to just go force your will on people. That's what he did for his entire career. So that question is pretty easy for me to answer.
All right. The most satisfying, you mentioned the American Century, the most satisfying guy for you to beat. I know that you had guys that you targeted that I will have more points than him. Who was the guy that was most satisfying to beat?
When I was playing? Oh,
yes.
God. I'm going to say it had to be somebody in my division. Probably Drew Brees. I mean, he was great, right? And he had great teams. He had a great coach and Sean Payton, and we could never beat him. So whenever we found a way, it was, you know, you went to the locker room and patted yourself on the back. You know, it was just one of those feelings of accomplishment because they were such a good and resilient football team. But I love to beat them. They're just hard to beat.
All right. The current tour player that you're most emotionally invested in right now, who is it?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably Sam Burns. I got to know him when he was our back-to-back champion a couple of years ago. Valspar did a mural for him down in Ruston, Louisiana, and he had won, and it was great to go visit with him and his family and see where he's living. And I just made a connection with him. So for the last 4 years now, he's been the guy that I'm always looking for on the leaderboard. I mean, I have plenty of favorites. I love Thagala. I love Tony Finau. I love those type of players. But Sam Burns is the one for me. All
right, last thing. I know this answer because I think you told me it during the break. The place you're looking forward to most playing golf this year is where?
Is where? It's going to be in a couple weeks. It's going to be freezing, I think. But I'm going to Portrush. I've played golf in Ireland, but I've not played there. And I know they got a big event coming up later in the year, so I'm really looking forward to it. I know you're going there for a little birthday you're going to be celebrating, which is Monday of Masters Week, April 7th. I won't mention the number. It starts with a 5. Before you go there, I will see you. We will be doing the show from the James Hardy, the new event that's with PGA Tour Champions event. I look forward to being with you down there in Boca. Thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great week. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate you having me on, man. Cheers. Oh, you bet. There is Ronde Barber, one of the best defensive backs for one of the best defenses that we've seen in the NFL, that covered 2 of the Tampa Bay Bucks, an all-decade player, Pro Football Hall of Famer. We take a break. Our Hall of Famers, Wagyu, Filet, little steak for breakfast, Johnson Wagner, Brendon de Jonge with me for the balance of this Tuesday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel and on the PGA Tour Radio Network. Back with them right after this. Welcome back in. We love having them in every couple of weeks. Of course, they've got their own show on Monday nights on the PGA Tour Radio Network on SiriusXM. Last night, they followed that playoff in TGL. And one of them is fresh off rinsing one on 17, doing it with the 2-time champion himself. He had a very long week. He's up early. He's out there late hitting shots in darkness. And of course, his partner, his voice is getting weightier every day when it comes to radio and TV. I'm talking about Johnson Wagner and Brendon de Jonge, Wagyu Filet. Good morning, gentlemen.
Gary, good to be here.
Good to have you. You drove back yesterday. You guys did your show last night. There's a lot to unpack here. I mean, the players. Let's just start with this event. Being there again and doing it in a little bit different way where I had more time to walk the property, this event is one of the best run golf championships in the world, and they make it better every year. I saw things this year I hadn't seen before. They are in full stride right now. Just your thoughts about the players.
Yeah, it was always one of my favorite events to play in, and now covering it the last 2 years for Golf Channel, you know, the fan zone, the fan shop, everything that's behind the 17th. There's so much for kids to do. There's so much for adults. It truly is a wonderful experience. The parking now, coming down A1A, if you're coming in at the wrong time,
sure.
Traffic can be a little bad, but that's the only complaint I have.
Your thoughts on this championship?
Yeah, it just continues to get bigger and better from a viewer standpoint, from a participant standpoint, everything. They just nail it. Everything is spot on. You know, it's so nice when you see all the little detail that goes into everything as far as this event goes. And the players are treated like absolute kings. I know we were when we played it, and it's just continued to grow.
Are you good with the overall setup of the golf course? They made some alterations to the right of 14 fairway. They replant the tree in the front of 6T, the agronomics, the setup, the scoring, everything all good with you this week?
Spot on. I think it was awesome. I think, you know, when we went to March, we understood the golf course was going to be a little bit softer. There was going to be that overseed. You also bring in the variable winds. So that was kind of what we got. And then we saw that in the playoff where it completely switched and came out of the north. And I think that was kind of what they were hoping to when they moved it to March, was get those variable winds with a different setup of the golf course with that softer overseed. But yes, I think everything was spot on.
To think about Rory McIlroy hitting a little chippy 9-iron that he said was 147 yards. The hole's playing 131. Yep. He had a 147-yard shot. J.J. Spaun hitting an 8-iron. In May, it seemed like we always had that southerly breeze, and you just never got the volatility of 17 unless the green was brick hard. I think it's fun seeing those guys have to hit shots, and being out there yesterday in that wind and trying to hit that shot, it is no cupcake just to get that ball on the putting surface. So I really think that shot Rory hit was one of the best shots he hit of the week in that playoff on 17.
What do you think a scoring average could have been if we'd had one day of that north wind?
Well, it was brutal Monday. It was the same wind on Monday, and it was blowing even harder.
How spicy those greens were? They only played 3 holes. Those greens were slick yesterday.
They were slick, and I mean, I was out there most nights, and Jeff Plotz and his crew, like, how good did that place look from those drone shots?
Oh,
but they were watering the fairways. They were syringing the greens every night. They knew with that wind that it could have gotten completely out of control on Saturday, Sunday with those high winds that came up.
He mentioned the shot on 17. Just give me an overall capsule, whether it's a handful of shots, whether it's stats, anything, the things that stood out most in the way that Rory won for you, what were they?
Obviously, 17 is the one. That's a shot, and I think he'd probably be the first admitter that he didn't have a couple years ago. He would have tried to hit a wedge and hit it through the wind and power it. That was one for me. And then this new kind of Rory with the course management. I watched him hit a 3-iron off the 9th tee on Sunday. Rory's not typically doing that. Rory would try and smash driver down there as far as he could, get it into the narrow part of the fairway. So everything that he's been working on, whether it be the softer shots or the course management, all seems to be kind of taking shape right now. And I mean, he's peaking.
He did hit that driver off the tee Saturday, downwind, same wind. That was, as soon as he pulled it, I was like, please don't hit driver, please don't hit driver. And he flew it into the water, probably 10 yards right of where he was looking.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, he's still making some of those mistakes. And coming down the stretch, bogeying 14, fine. Then he comes back with that beautiful shot on 15, didn't make it, didn't get it up and down on 16. The conditions were tough, but at the point when he came out of the rain delay, when he birdied 12 and Spaun bogeyed 11, he had a 3-shot lead. It would have been nice to see him close that deal and win by 3 or 4. But at the same time, with that leaderboard, I think he was cautious. I think he was like, looking at that leaderboard, if I get into a playoff with these guys, I like my chances.
You mentioned the soft arm shots, off-speed stuff. Very impressive. I thought, look, the tournament was in hand, but even his 3rd to 18 yesterday was sublime. I mean, just the way that it was flighted. So there's a refinement to the things that he's doing. He hit 3-iron. It was a different wind on Sunday off the tee on 18. And obviously he hit driver yesterday. Also some shots that showed ingenuity. Think about his 2nd on 18 on Thursday. How about his 2nd on 6 on Saturday? That shot was one of the best shots that I've seen him hit. Now, did he get a break where the ball hit a branch and kicked left to that path? And he had an opening, but it wasn't a big opening. Those types of things, to me, stand out as well.
And I think you go back to that golf ball he switched to. He switched to the spinnier golf ball. And to your point about hitting a wedge on 17 with a lower spinning ball, he can get away with that and mask it. But being forced to flight those, I was concerned Saturday when the winds were up. I was like, oh boy, this spinny golf ball is going to start going in different directions. And it didn't. He almost got better as the wind picked up.
I think it's so encouraging. Rory finished 17th in strokes gained off the tee to N1 this week. That doesn't happen typically for Rory McIlroy. Normally it's him dominating a golf course by smashing drivers, leading in strokes gained off the tee. For him to be just inside the top 20 and win.
Well, but I mean, how is he still 17th in strokes gained off the tee, only hitting 48% of his fairways? Like, that to me just says that, hey, he can put it out there. The rough wasn't as bad as Bay Hill, and the golf course was set up more so to be able to get away with that. But you're right. Like, we're used to seeing him never outside the top 5 in that category for any given week.
I asked you this yesterday before the playoff, and I'm not saying that he won't have putts that are more important, especially if he has a putt to win a major. But the putt on Saturday on 18, when we look back, whether it's at the end of this year, at the end of his career, if that putt doesn't go in, I have no earthly idea what the narrative would be. I think I have a good idea of what it would be, considering he had a 3-shot lead with 6 to go and he missed a putt inside of 5 feet off of what happened at Pinehurst last year. That putt on 18 on Saturday may go down in his overall collage of moments as one of the most important of his life.
I mean, and seeing it lip in, and he said it, and I think he said it to Rich and them. He was trying to play it straight with some pace, thought if anything it would go left. He said it actually went right. I mean, he was comfortable. He hit the putt. He executed it the way he wanted to. And I agree with you. Like, he could go on to win the Masters, and we'll be looking back like that was the putt. If had that gone in, then the narrative would have been completely different.
Yeah, I mean, how often have we talked about this being a game of inches? If that putt lips out, then he's having to answer all the questions again, and it just completely flips everything. But hey, it went in, and he did what he needed to.
He did, and then interestingly enough, yesterday he hits 2 wonderful shots on 16. I think that tee shot on 16 was statement type stuff. I thought his second shot was the absolute proper, line and play. It was the perfect weight. and it was such a slick putt. It goes by 5 feet. If he doesn't take advantage of that hole with J.J. Spaun in that bunker, he didn't hit a good bunker shot, and he walks off with 5. It was basically the same distance, and he poured it right in the middle. And then he goes to 17 and he hits what I felt was the integrity of the strike of that shot on 17 into that wind, flighting it down with the way that ball reacted, knowing the back of that green. If that ball is hit a groove up or a groove down, you don't know how that ball is going to react. That was close enough to the back of the green. As firm as it was, again, he said he needed to make 5 really good full swings. He didn't need to in the end, but the ones he needed to, he did it.
He did it, and it was over after that. J.J. Spaun now 1 down, takes on a club. I don't know what he was doing looking in Rory's bag. I would not be trying to club off of Rory, but that being said, they played together Saturday in the wind. So J.J. obviously had some sort of awareness of how he compared to Rory distance-wise. I just think the shot, when I was sitting up in our studio up there on 17, Rory's shot came out so low, Spawn's came out very high. They were completely different golf shots, and it's almost like J.J. overthought that one a little too much.
And I tell you what I didn't like, and we talked about this a little bit on our radio show, was JJ was very quick to talk about he was on the range hitting these 128-yard 8-irons and stuff. That's great on the range. That's fantastic. You get out on that 17th tee, you have adrenaline coursing through your veins. That ball is going to go a good 5-10 yards further. You cannot hit the same shot off that 17th tee that you were hitting an hour ago on the range. I understand analytics plays a massive part of this game, but there comes a point where, you know, you've got to go with a little bit of a feel of what your body's feeling at the time.
All the bells and whistles that NBC provided, including one that as soon as he made the strike, you should have paused if you were thinking, you know, I'm rooting for J.J. Spaun. Rory's ball speed was 111. J.J. Spaun's was 119. As soon as he made contact, you should have been going, wait a second. You knew where Rory's ball landed. Again, you said it. You said it when we had you on. Look, that shot, especially if he's facing a one-shot deficit, the golf tournament could be over with one swing, and it effectively was. Here we go now. He's in a place he's not been in before with respect to accomplishment on the PGA Tour before the month of April, and that is 2 wins. Yeah. And it's 2 wins at places where it wasn't driver with just total liberty, like, hey, I'll just go find it, and I'm closer to the hole than anybody else. It's Pebble Beach and then the Players. So what does that mean?
I mean, unfortunately, it means Rory's going to have to continue to answer the same questions until he wins a major. It's not going to change until he wins a major. Any major. Okay,
so what if he's gutted? What if he's gutted at Augusta National? Then it makes it seem even more challenging to come to Quail Hollow, even though he's been better here than anybody else. It is that question, right? I don't diminish the accomplishment at all. It's a massive, massive win, and it should build momentum and confidence in it, and I believe it absolutely should. But externally, the expectation and the pressure goes from here to here, does it not?
It absolutely does, but what I love that we've seen out of Rory, and I think we've seen it the last number of years, he is prepared so differently for Augusta every year. He finds something different.
Yeah.
Whether it's 4 wedges, whatever it may be.
Scheduling.
To see him show up with a spinnier golf ball, less wedges, working on more flights, seemingly to me right now, Brendon, he's got more shots around the green and into the green from inside. Well, 131 yards yesterday with a 9-iron. Like, he's got more of these touchy-feely shots that are ultimately, if you have to lay up on 13 one day at Augusta and you're in those right trees and you lay it up, he can now lay it up to a number of different spots, and I'll feel very comfortable with him hitting the appropriate shot into the green.
Yeah, the knock on Rory was for the longest time was that he could only win on a wet golf course with it was dead calm, and now he's proved that so wrong. I mean, these have been 2 of the windier weeks where he's won at Pebble and now at the Players. And yeah, the way he's controlled that ball and the way he's controlling those wedges, I mean, there's so much to like, and it feels like everything he's working on is correct. And that, as a player, that's exactly the feedback you want.
Some of the advanced stats, Rabbit Hole, they do a great job. Like, his performance in winds in excess of 15 to 18 miles an hour, better than anybody else. The other thing, it's not a quantum leap, but incrementally he's gotten better at strokes gained around the green. And you guys know those sticky chips at Augusta National are beguiling. He's more equipped now than he has been before. All right, we're going to take a break with the boys. We come back. A full assessment on some other players, including Scotty Scheffler, who I think has gotten a little chippy, and it's not only on the golf course, kind of off the golf course. with respect to his patience and also some other storylines from the players. It's Wagyu Filet on a Tuesday. Back with you right after this. They're always smiling, aren't they? Wagyu Filet, of course, their show on Monday nights on the PGA Tour Radio Network, and they've got their own show on our YouTube channel. They've got some interesting topics they're going to get into. You will have that show available to you at 5 Clubs Golf tomorrow. And this segment is brought to you by Pinehurst. There's always a good reason to get to the Pinehurst Resort. They're adding cottages to number 8, the new clubhouse and restaurant at Pinehurst number 10. Always a good time to be at the Pinehurst Resort. All right, the Scheffler assessment, gentlemen, tied for 20th. What did you see?
I mean, I think we all saw the same thing, frustration. I mean, the way he picked his ball out of the hole on 17 and threw it into the water. I know you mentioned it, the way he's talking to media. He is frustrated. I think, I mean, it's only been 5 events. He's still playing good. He's top 20 every week. It's just, he's pulling putts, he's pulling tee shots, he's pulling everything. And I don't know if it's an issue with the hand where he's too left arm dominant with everything, but the frustration's getting to him.
Yeah, and I don't care who you are, you miss enough makeable putts, you're going to get frustrated, and it's going to start to show after some time, especially when you're playing in tricky conditions. It kind of adds to it a little bit. But yeah, he's frustrated.
I'm not going to call him combative with the media, but a little edgy. Is that fair?
Snarky?
Snarky, too.
Yeah, I heard his quick quotes on Sunday. He seemed snarky.
Yeah.
The things that he's usually so proficient at that right now, you mentioned, some pulls that have been persistent. His area around, he's not being as efficient. His chipping, we know his putting can be lukewarm to sometimes cold, but even because his ball striking is so superior. But the other part is, if he does miss a green, his efficiency. He was tied for 45th in strokes gained around the green. He did not have a good week in areas in which, when he was missing greens, he wasn't getting up and down. The other space that he's in, which is what the #1 player in the world occupies, is we make note of your rounds. We don't wait till the end of the week to do an assessment. He's not at the Tiger level where we were doing referendums hole to hole. Like, he just made a bogey. What's wrong with him? But with him, it's like, wow, he shot level par. What's going on? That's new for him. He's got to deal with that. Isn't that fair?
Yes, it's fair. But I mean, I think we all need to just pause. In words of Aaron Rodgers a few years ago, we need to relax. I mean, the guy didn't get to prepare the way he would for 4 weeks during the offseason. He was out, not able to touch a club. And so I think we're now just starting to see maybe where he would have been had he started at Kapalua. And I'm going to give him a break. He's still top 20 in every single week.
Yeah.
I think a lot will be told at Houston how he comes out. Yeah. And then, I'll kind of make my decision after that about what I think for him at the Masters.
It's interesting. The other guy was less than his best, and he won, which is in some ways more impressive than full flight, total majesty of Rory doing everything superior, which means maybe we have something. Maybe they get a moment soon enough together, like deep into a golf tournament. Give me a couple other storylines that you were struck by.
Honestly, Bud Corley for me was the biggest one.
He's going to be on the show tomorrow.
Awesome. I think Bud's a great guy, and for everything that he's gone through, to see him back there where now he's going to have full playing privileges, that to me was one. And then Danny Walker, getting in last minute like that, and the way that he was prepared to be ready to get into that event. You know how hard that is, waiting for that last minute call.
And he was in a featured group. He's playing with Clark and Jordan Spieth.
Right, to play in a featured group and to show those guys up. But again, it also goes back to, why are we playing these signature events with limited fields when you get so many storylines like this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm gonna go away from the actual golf on my thought. I thought the work that Davis Love III and his team have done to that golf course. You mentioned 14. You mentioned the tree on 6. Some new tees. The 11th tee box complex is completely different than it used to be. There's now room for spectators if they want to move the ropes in. Really good work. I'm hoping to see them touch 12 a little bit. I like the idea of it being drivable.
I'm with you.
And I just think it's never given us, since 2017.
Hasn't delivered enough.
It hasn't delivered a moment. Like, it's too hard to get a driver on there. And I think about great drivable par 4s, like 17 at the Phoenix Open. I think about Quail Hollow number 14, even 10 at Riv. It's hard to get the ball on the green, but it's got character. And 12 to me is flat. And I'm pushing Davis. take a look at 12, please.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Look, the Walker and Collie stories are great. Let me add a couple more. Nobody's more bullish on Akshay Bhatia than you.
Oh.
Hey man, this is the blender, man. You are deep into a golf tournament. You're in the spin cycle. I thought he was very impressive, especially because he got knocked back and then he dug in and kind of put his nose right back into the middle of it. And then the other guy that you guys both love, rightfully so, Lucas Glover. He took a punch early in the final round. He rolled it over the edge on 17 to get to 11 under, which would have put him in a position to make birdie on 18 to get into that playoff. Those two stories, young and old, I thought were great.
Yeah, I mean, Akshay, I don't think there was anybody in that golf tournament Sunday that swung the golf club better than Akshay did. It was magical. The little draw wedges, the cut wedges, like he has every shot in the bag, high, low.
Dynamic as hell.
Had he putted like he had the first 2 days, he would have won that tournament by 4 strokes with the way he hit it. It was amazing.
It wouldn't have taken a lot looking at it for Akshay to have won that outright, not even had to go playoff. I mean, just a couple putts here and there. But yeah, there's good things coming. And you called it. You said a bold prediction. Watch Akshay Bhatia in the majors this year.
All right. The boys will have a show on YouTube tomorrow. Andy Johnson from Fried Egg. Bud Colley as well on a Wednesday. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.